Welcome to A Dose of Feel Good. I'm your host, Whitney Bischoff, and today our topic is The Hurt Makes Us Human. You can see full show notes at doseoffeelgood.my.canva.site. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hello everyone, we have hit another milestone and we are at episode 30 this week, and I picked a particularly relevant topic for me. We're going to be talking about the hurt makes us human, and as we approach the holiday season, I think a lot of people can probably relate to this topic, and so I thought it'd be helpful to just kind of talk through it a little bit. And I think selfishly a little bit, it's the reminder that I needed, and I know I've said this in a few different episodes that sometimes I get down of, I've been doing this now for 30 episodes, and less and less people, it feels like, are listening to what I have to say each week. But I know that this whole journey has been particularly healing for me, and I think this topic is particularly helpful in that reminder as well, that this isn't just for all of you out there that might be listening either now or in the future, but it's really helpful for myself as well. So we're going to dive right in today. So I think when we think of the holiday season or the New Year's time, that there's a bunch of joy during those seasons, and there most certainly is. But I think for some of us, it also brings about this grief. Usually, at least for me, it's the loss of loved ones. I have said before, I lost my dad when I was very young, my mom when I was 19, and so anytime the holiday season comes around, there is the joy that the holidays bring, but there's also this very real pain, and I'm not sure why around the holiday season it's always maybe a little bit more prevalent, but as I talk with people who have experienced similar grief, it comes around more often, I think, during the holidays or at a higher level. For me, it's also the season. My dad died on December 15th, so right between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and December's just always been hard since then, and it was 25 years ago this year, so there is this particular hurt season, if you will. I think it's also this looking forward in a hopeful way to whatever the next year brings, but if the year was hard, it's also a time for grieving what maybe you wished would have happened or didn't happen, or that hurt that comes right back up as we approach another year. And I think in these moments, and when we are really hurting or grieving for whatever reason, it feels like it's never ending, that we're never going to get out of those moments. And honestly, we just want to be out of it. I'm at least one of those people that I want to ignore that hurt and the emotions that go with it. And I just want to mask and focus on the joy of the season. But the reality is that in those moments, if we never had hurt in our lives, if we never experienced those things, we really wouldn't appreciate what is good. And I mean that in a way of, if everything was even just at an okay level, right? If everything was there and we never really experienced how hurt we can get, we wouldn't know what it means to actually enjoy something. We wouldn't appreciate those moments nearly as much. And so while it's odd to think about, that hurt makes us feel joy so much more and so much deeper. And I think when we're in these moments of hurt, the emotions that go with that, um, it shows us in a roundabout way that we aren't just robots going through the motions, right? That when we experience the hurt, we are actually humans and feeling those deep things that go along with our day-to-day lives, and that we're not just on a conveyor belt. Now I'm going to start talking about the meaning of life, which I promise I won't go into that, but I think it helps us to really appreciate those emotions, even the ones that come from hurt. And I know I'm someone that I feel deeply. I am not great at showing my emotions. Anyone would tell you that. But when we feel really deeply, for me, it's very like sporadic. And it feels like we're just cracked open. And it's not fun. It's not fun for anyone. But I know when I get into that space for whatever reason, that I've started to just take a moment to appreciate my humanness that allows me to feel deeply, even if it is incredibly painful sometimes. But I know I've mentioned I'm dealing with a variety of health concerns and scares, and especially now, having that fear or hurt or whatever that looks like, it honestly gives me a second to be thankful for just being alive and being human. And I've never been in that space before. I would just roll through the motions and not sit in that hurt, not process what that means. But I've started to realize that the hurt also comes from the beauty and good that we grieve. That, I loved my parents a lot. They had a huge impact on me. Or even just grieving, the loss of different friendships, relationships, times past, whatever that looks like. It shows us that there were beauty and good in those moments, in those people. And it's that gentle reminder of really how good we have it now, have had it before, and we don't have to sit in the hurt in a negative way. I think hurt can also be used in this way of gratitude and thankfulness of just being alive and being able to really build some really great relationships that have a huge impact on us. So to exemplify this in a couple of stories, so as I started the episode, I have experienced a large amount of loss in my life, and sometimes I always find it ironic, or sometimes I get angry, which is not the right approach, I'll say that. But when people are like, oh, you're so strong, or you've been through so much, or and you're still so positive. And while I know it's a compliment, I think sometimes that anger comes from, we don't ask to experience that grief. And at least for myself, I always say, like, I didn't have any other choice. I didn't have any other choice but to push through and to find ways to keep going, because there is a lot of hurt in that loss. And I think even the more time that has passed, like, I've experienced so much. I am obviously not the 7-year-old when my dad passed, or even 19 when my mom did, but I've experienced so much life since then. I've been able to impact so many people, and I can see that. But there is definitely a real hurt in the grief of not being able to experience that with people who mattered the most. But I think it's also helpful to be reminded that all of those things that I did have to go through as a young person gives me gratitude of where I am now. I'm in a much better place. I have an amazing job that I get to impact people every day. I now have, I always say, I have a roof over my head. I have food on my plate. And I can go and do whatever I'd like to do. And I was never in that point as a young person. I was terrified of just what each day brings. And so it brings that special gratitude to where I am now. And it's also taught me, I am definitely still someone when it comes to emotions that I hide them. I am definitely that person that wants to cry alone, not around anyone else, and I isolate. When I start feeling a lot, I pull away from people because I don't want my hurt to spill over into somebody else. And so I think there's this sometimes false mentality that, oh, she just has so much joy and has it all together and can see the sunshiny things even when it's hard. And the reality is I'm still somebody that is working on how to share those emotions and normalize that in others and be comfortable doing that. But I have now gotten to this place when we're talking about why is this so important to be reminded that the hurt makes us human, and that humanness is a good thing and relatable. It's because we are lucky to be humans. We have intelligence, we have relationship, we can think and feel all of the things, which sometimes, especially in those hurt places, can feel like a lot to have to navigate. But I also think that if you ever think of someone who just feels numb, I know I've gotten to the place, I know I'm burnt out and exhausted when I'm just at this numb where I don't want to cry anymore. Nothing really makes me angry. I'm just kind of floating here. And I genuinely think that's a worse feeling than letting in the intense feelings and emotions, because then at least I'm feeling, right? I don't ever want to be in that place where I'm just numb and going through life as a robot, right? I don't want to be in that space. So this reminder that the hurt, the feelings, the emotions, it doesn't make you broken. It doesn't make you less than. And there isn't a reason to be ashamed of feeling all of those things, because some of us have gone through some really hard, hurtful things. And that's just the reality of it. And it's going to bring up emotions. It's going to continue to hurt us because we're always going to be navigating those moments and what it brings to us. But that vulnerability, when we share those emotions or even experiences, it makes us real. I was presenting to a group of students a couple weeks ago, and we wrote a poem about all these things, like I wish I could tell you about blank, about a hard time that we had to navigate. And so as the presenter, I had to read my poem out loud, and I teared up at the end because, again, all of these very real health concerns and just seeing people in the room who had to care what I had to say, and being thankful for the moment to be able to share in that was really powerful. And I'm even tearing up a little bit just thinking about it, but it's true that when we share what makes us, all of the pieces, it helps us relate as humans and a part of the human experience. And I really do think that's a beautiful thing. I think the last kind of nugget here is that the hurt also shows us that there will be good again. I remember being in just a really bad place as a young person and feeling like I was never going to get out of that. And I would have loved at that moment to get to that numb because it was just constant hurt, it felt like. But now I can appreciate so much good now. And I always say if I could just see where I am now, it would make all that hurting worth it. And it shows me now that, like, processing maybe why I feel a certain way, why these certain emotions are coming up, especially for me, they tend to come up out of the blue. And I'm like, what are you doing here? But it shows that there is hope and beauty in everything that makes us human, including those hurt moments, and still being thankful for being able to feel all of those pieces, even when it is incredibly hard. So our call to action for this week, I have 3 very simple pieces to take with you. I know I've mentioned this before, but I'm trying to get back in the swing of things myself. But I think doing a daily gratitude can be incredibly powerful, especially when you're navigating some hurt moments. So I write down mine. I have a giant recipe box that has 365 cards with the dates. And so I write down one thing that I'm thankful for or accomplished each day. And then each year I get to add a new gratitude for that day. And it's so helpful to be able to like look back and see all of the things that I'm thankful for and maybe take for granted now, but that brought me so much joy previously. So I highly recommend doing that daily gratitude, whether it is in a physical way that you can actually see year over year, just those reminders of the good in each day, and especially again in those hurt moments. The second piece is when you're feeling the emotions, let them roll. Just find those moments to let it all out and be thankful for those moments where you get to feel, even when it's really hard things that feel like your chest is breaking open, and you don't know what healing actually looks like. Process those emotions and let them out. It's important to do that. And then the last piece, which kind of ties into there, is to push yourself to vulnerability, which is what I'm doing each and every day, to show that it doesn't always have to be good, and that the hurt moments still make us just as human and relatable as the strong moments do. And that's going to wrap up episode 30. I know people might be struggling right now, especially as we approach finals for a lot of students, the holiday season. So take some time, take care of yourself this week, and join us again next week.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are feeling ready to conquer the week and let your impact ripple out to the world around you. Let's connect on Instagram and Threads at Dose of Feel Good Podcast. If you're loving the podcast, I'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button and leave a review. Until next time, share your own dose of feel good and never underestimate the power of positivity.